A deal on Dickens, who could resist? A stack of Austen, warmly kissed. Golden Age crime tales twist and turn, every page a treasure to learn. Books keep coming home with me, piles so tall they're all I see. Turn a page and sail the sea, reading always feels so free.
Hi, my name is Talia. Welcome to Talia Nerds Out. I have a book review for, I almost said Jane Austen July, but it's not for Jane Austen July. I'm still reading for Jane Austen July. This is for June's Journey with the Inklings, which was a Luminous Libro readathon. This is her second year that she's done this. And I actually finished 2 books for the readathon. I just haven't gotten around to reviewing any of them till now. And the first one that I read was started at the beginning of June and finished by the end. And this was a short book. This is J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lay of Aotrou and Itroun. And I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right. So this is, these are stories that are Corrigan stories. It shows the Corrigan 1, first folio, the manuscript, Corrigan 2, first so I guess they have a couple of pictures, Aotrou and Itroun, first folio. So Aotrou and Itroun, if I remember correctly, that's just means like Lord and Lady. And it's used like that's the characters' names. And for the most part, these are retellings of the same story. And it's a dark story. It's a Corrigan tale. It's a tale. So I'm going to use I think what I highlighted in the text about what a Corrigan tale is to better explain myself. So, a Corrigan, it's a Celtic female fairy, malevolent, sometimes seductive, whose dangerous attraction embodies both the lure and terror, the fear of the beautiful fae. Although Tolkien's poem is in Old English, the character is a commonly reoccurring one in Celtic folklore, the seductive otherworld female who lures a mortal man, an elf maiden, beguiling a mortal man into fairyland. So there are a couple different versions of the lay in here. In one version, in all the versions, at least initially, the wife is unable to conceive. And then I think in one version, she ends up eventually being able to have twins. In another version, I think it's maybe one child. But at some point within the story, the Corrigan, before the children is born, the Corrigan appears. And she in one version, the husband makes a deal with her, the king makes a deal with her. And then once he has his children, he reneges on the deal. In another version, he never makes a deal with her, but she still takes her revenge on him for not agreeing to stay with her in the forest after her children are born, or not to just give her whatever it is that she desires. But every time it ends a tragedy. Each version of this folkloric tale, as Tolkien tells it, ends tragically. So it's a dark story, no matter which version of the lay that you read within this book. I think the best enjoyment of it is to be taken from reading it aloud, which is how I did it, because it is written in verse. I'm not actually completely sure which version of it that I like the best. I think I like best the one where he doesn't renege on his deal, where he never agreed and he just kind of still had to deal with the Corrigan being Corrigan. Although the first one where you have all the extra detail with him making the deal and reneging and all that, that's probably the one that has the most detail around it, and it's probably the most fleshed out of Tolkien's version of the Lay. And apparently he was working on this at the same time that he was on Beren and Luthien, which is interesting because Beren and Luthien, you have a very different character in Luthien. Although she is also a powerful elf maiden, she is not malevolent. She is quite the opposite. And the same thing for her mother, who is also not malevolent. So, yeah, there's not a whole lot to say about the Lay of Aotrou and Itroun. I think that if you enjoy older tales that are told in verse, this could be up your alley. It's nice to see some of Tolkien's other work, particularly his works that are more Celtic in nature versus more Nordic. Because you have in his, I think it's his Sigurd and basically it's a story of the Volsungs, part of the Volsung saga, Sigurd and can't remember the second part of it. Anyway, that story from the Volsung saga, I'm used to seeing that, or I am used to seeing his Arthurian legends as well pulled up. But it's nice to see this story. It's a little bit more off the beaten path in his handling of legend with some of the even more Celtic to a certain extent than even Arthur is, even though Arthur definitely has a Celtic nature to it. It's nice to see some of the, even though it's not overt building blocks for what comes out later in his own legendarium, you can see in anytime you touch on Tolkien's involvement with other cultures, legends, you can see, and their fairy tales, folklore, whatever, you can see how they influenced him even a little bit. This one isn't one of the ones that most overtly influenced him, but you get the idea of fate to a certain extent with this, which is a big thing in Tolkien's work. And you get, the idea that you don't really play with things like things that are from the land of fairy. They're not very easy to understand or control. And that is something that has kind of been touched on in his own more main work. That's touched on, there's a big part of his Corrigan tales in Aotrou and Itroun. So I did very much enjoy reading this. It was a nice, quick read. I think I'm actually going to make this a dual book review. So let me put this on pause a second and grab my other one that I finished for June's Journey with the Inklings. I changed my mind. This is just going to be a quick review and then I'll go into the other book. So that's really all I had to say for the Lay of Aotrou and Itroun. I do recommend reading it aloud to get the most out of it. Even if you don't think your pronunciations are on top, right on what they're probably supposed to be. I know mine probably were not. But it's still, I think, a more enjoyable and more immersive read if you read it aloud versus just quietly, as if you're reading, just prose or something. So yeah, have you read any of Tolkien's translations, like his work on the Volsung saga, his work with Arthurian legend, or anything like that? I know that he has several different things that he had worked on that were not his Middle Earth, but other areas. And have you read any of those other works, or have you mostly stuck to his own legendarium? So, hope that you got something out of this short little review. There's not a whole lot to say when you're dealing with partial works such as this, especially when it's like Beren and Luthien, where you have multiple drafts, for lack of a better term, of him working out the story. So like in Beren and Luthien, you had a more prose prose style version of that story. Then you had the lay. Then you had a translation from a different period. Then you had him reworking it in a different way. You kind of have some of that with the lay of Aotrou and Itroun. I think there's also a little part of the introduction where we might have Christopher Tolkien writing. Not this part here. Oh yeah, it's the note on the text is by Christopher Tolkien. So before he passed on. So yeah, that's it for this book. Let me know below if you have read any of Tolkien's other non-Middle-earth works. Thank you very much for joining me. God bless. Bye-bye.
Books keep coming home with me, piles so tall they're all I see. Turn a page and sail the sea. Reading always feels so free.